And STK is the flagship software from AGI. And we started with space and modeling satellite orbits and then expanded out. And now we can model anything that is moving or stationary and the relationship between those objects. So STK is used in the StellarXplorers competition, and we're going to go through a fundamental overview today and hit on some of the key capabilities that you'll need in your upcoming applications. So is there anyone who does not have STK loaded already? I will take that silence as we're good to go. So when learning STK, there are a lot of different components and parts, and honestly, it can be overwhelming or boring sometimes. So what we like to do is try to do it with a real application as opposed to just clicking around the software. So since James Bond came out this weekend, I thought we could do a Russian spy satellite and its capability to spy on the White House. So what we're going to do is whenever you open STK, you have this welcome box right here, and we're going to create a new scenario. This opens up the new scenario wizard. And in the new scenario wizard, we have a couple important fields. The first is the name, and something to note here is you cannot use spaces because this also creates a file name for this STK scenario. So I'm going to call mine SpySat. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a scenario where we model our environment and all of these objects in our environment, and it's going to save it as a folder. And within this folder, you have a scenario saved, and each of your objects that you insert in the scenario will be saved as well. So I'm going to enter a description. I'm going to say, when can a Russian spy satellite see the White House? This way I can go back, I'll always know what my scenario is about. The location is where your scenario is going to be saved. This will be the folder which all of your components are saved in. And then below that you can see we have start and stop times. Now these are the times that sets up your scenario for analysis. It sets the epoch, it sets the start and stop times for your animation. So this is really important. We're going to leave this today at the default right here. We're going to do a 24-hour analysis. But if you wanted to change the units, because everything in STK is customizable, what we're going to do, pardon me, you just click the down arrow and you can set it to different dates. You can select a date or you can change your units over here. Like I said, almost anything in STK has a drop down and you can change units to fit your needs. We're going to leave the central body as Earth and click OK. Now when your window loads, there's a lot going to happen, but I would request don't go clicking around yet because there's a lot happening. And I'm going to take you on a little tour. So everyone should be at the point now where we have this window right here called the Insert STK Objects. You don't have to close this, but I'm going to close it to show you around a bit. Your STK graphic user interface is made up of a couple key areas. This big window right here has your 2 and 3D graphic windows. Up at the top you have your regular drop downs along with these toolbars right here which do different things. You have your animation toolbar, your search toolbar if you want to insert a certain place. You have your basic functions, which is saving a new scenario, things like that. You have a reports toolbar, access, and a 3D object editor. Now these can change. You can add them, you can take them away, you can move them around if you want more space or if you don't want any space at all. And then over here on the left, the first thing we're going to look at is the object browser, which is right here. Whenever we include something in a scenario, it's going to appear right here, and it's going to be each individual object with its own properties. So right now, all we have is the scenario itself, and you can see that's right here. It's called SpySat, and it has this little mountain with a sun by it. Now, everything is going to appear under that, and it's tiered, so it's a parent-child relationship. Down here at the bottom, you're going to see your timeline, and this allows us to move through the scenario to a specific period and visualize that on one of our two screens up top. So if everyone will take a look at the Insert Objects, what we're going to do is insert the two objects we need for our scenario. One is going to be the White House. And if you look around, you can see there are different types of objects to insert. And then on the right side, there are different methods with which you can insert the object. And if you click these different objects, you'll see that the methods change. Now you'll also notice that some are grayed out, and these are extended in different licensing, which you'll get to in your next round of the competition. But right now we have aircraft, we have targets, so we're going to start with a place. And you can see you can search by the address or a city database if you want to insert a city. We also have different files you can put in. If you put in a default, you can change it around. But we're going to go right to defining properties. And if I click on that and I hit insert, you'll see that the properties page comes up for the place. You'll also see in the object browser that the place has now appeared under our main scenario. And it's denoted by this little orange bubble. So in our properties, I'm going to put in the latitude and longitude for the White House. And actually, I'm going to send this to you in the chat box as well. Pardon me. Now I'm going to send it in the chat as well. Now, if everyone inserts this into their properties for their place, you'll see a couple options right here. If you click OK, it will accept the changes that you've made and close the properties screen. If you click Cancel, it will cancel anything. If you click Apply, which is what I'm going to do, it will accept the properties, but it keeps the screen open. This is good if you're tweaking something, like if you need to tweak an aircraft route or a satellite orbit, and you want to go back and forth and check it in your windows. It's a really good way to do that. So I'm going to click OK then and close it. And then I'm going to go over and right-click on my place in the object browser, and I'm going to rename it so I don't get confused. Place 1, place 2 gets confusing. And I'm going to rename it to White House. And just hit Enter. I'm going to pause for a moment so everyone can catch up. And I'm going to leave the properties open for the White House. So once again, I right-click in the object browser and I click Properties. And this is what I have. Now you'll see that there are other properties that you can change. You can change the 2D graphics, how it appears on the 3D. You can put constraints on it, but for right now, we're just going to insert the place. Does anyone not have their place inserted? Great. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back to my Insert STK objects. Now we want to model our spacecraft, and we want to insert our satellite. There are a couple ways to do this, as with everything else. If you know what satellite you want to put in, you can check our catalog, and that has, for example, ISS, DirecTV satellites, GPS, anything you can imagine. You can also put in your own ephemeris. You can put in GPS constellations. But the two we want to focus on today are the orbit wizard and define properties. Now, if you put it in with define properties, it will load up just like you saw on the other screen, and you'll be able to put in your orbital elements. If you have these already, that's great. For our imaginary Russian spy satellite, we're just going to wing it. So we're going to go with the orbit wizard. Now, I like this a lot because if you use the orbit wizard, you can get a visual of your satellite. So here it is with our 2D window. You'll see that my orbit is pink. If you don't like pink, if it comes up in another color that doesn't show up well, you can change that right here. You can also change the model if you like. You'll notice the analysis time period, so that's the period for which we're going to do analysis with the satellite, is the same as this STK scenario. So it's going to be 1 day. Over here on the left, you can see we can pick from a lot of different types of orbits. Today we're going to go with the Molniya satellite. The Russians like this one. So if we click that, you can see our defining attributes have changed. We're also going to name it SpySat. One thing I like to do on this page is I like to click this box right here that says Show All Graphics. If you've put in your place already, then you can see what the relationship between your satellite orbit and your intended graphic is, or your intended location. So if I were to change this, I can move my orbit, if only it were this simple, I could move my orbit to get closer to where I'm trying to look. Now, if you're feeling adventurous, feel free to play around with the different apogee and perigees that you can do. I'm going to stick with what we started with. And then I'm going to hit OK. And I'll wait for everybody else to make sure we're along. So I've got, here I have 100 degrees, 500 kilometers, and 270 degrees. It's looking good for the Russians. Now, we don't need anything else in our scenario to do this particular assessment. So what we're going to do is close the Insert STK Objects window. If you need it, if you haven't put something in, if you want to put something else in, all you have to do is go up here on this toolbar, and there's an Insert Object button. It has the 4 little icons in it, and you click that, and it comes right back up. If you want to add a sensor to your satellite, you can do so. If you click Edit Preferences, there are other things you can add as well. There's a lot of stuff that you can put in. But for today, we're just going to do the White House and a SpySat. Now, as you can see, we can't really see our scenario very well. So I think the best way to look at this is if we go up to Window and we hit Tile Vertically. Now we really have a good look at both the 2D graphics and the 3D graphics window. Some people prefer one over the other. This is my preference, so I can see both at the same time. Now that we're here, we're going to maximize the 2D graphics window. Now you'll notice right down here below the window there are little tabs. Whenever you open properties or if you open reports and things like that, they're usually down here on the tabs if you lose them. So I can switch now between my 3D and my 2D graphics windows. So I'm going to start with my 2D graphics, and we're going to learn how to play around and move around in this window. So the first thing we're going to do is click and drag left and right. This allows you to pan around the 2D graphic window. If you'd like to zoom in on this window, up here you're going to see a little toolbar for the graphic window. Now you can take a snapshot if you want to take a picture of it. You can measure distances, but right now we're going to grab this magnifying glass and click zoom in. Now the way we do this is we create a box around what we're trying to look at. So I'm going to focus on the White House right now. So I'm going to grab a corner and I'm going to click and hold and drag a box around the White House. And now I can pan around this smaller area and I can keep going. Make a very tiny box and keep going, and there it is. Now if I'm here and I want to go back, all I have to do is click this magnifying glass with a minus sign and I'm back to where I started. Now you'll note up here there are little properties folders. There are properties for everything. You can change if you don't want the background, if it's confusing, if you want to use a different map, you can road maps, you can change all of that. We're not going to do that today. We're just going to check out the 2D window. So play around a little bit with that. Practice zooming in. Once again, it's the little magnifying glass. You click and drag a box, and then you can pan around and zoom back out. Now what we're going to do while we're still in this window is up here you see what looks like a VCR, and I realize that makes me sound old. It looks like a DVD player set of rewind, pause, play, fast forward, and then you have these up and down arrows and then a couple clocks, and then this red button right here. What we're going to do now is we're going to press the play button with the line by it, and that's going to, as you see, inch our spy sat forward a little bit. You can keep clicking that and it's going to keep going. If you want to animate the scenario, you click the center button. And as you can see in the corner, my satellite's animating. If I think that's too long, I can speed it up with this, or I can pause and I can slow it down. And you can see the time step will change in the clock. And then I'm going to pause it when it gets right near DC. So I can rewind, I can do a time step backwards or forwards, and I can decrease or increase those time steps, or I can get some real-time animation. Now, this red button is your best friend. It's the reset button. What happens in the scenario is that the animation by default will go on faster than your analysis period, and as you can see, our satellite disappeared. Now we know it wouldn't normally disappear, but it's gone beyond the time of analysis. So all we have to do if we lose our satellite or a plane or anything else is hit the safety red reset button. So everybody play, rewind, pause, and then hit the reset button to get back to the start. And now if we click over to our 3D graphic window, you'll see that it centers probably on the Americas. This is what we call our home view. And if you look up here on the toolbar, you'll see the properties, you'll see a pan handle, a zoom, snapshot, and then you'll see these eyes right here. The eye with the house on it is your home view. If you ever get lost in the 3D window, you can click this and it'll bring you back right here. To manipulate the 3D window, we're going to click and drag. And just so you know, all those stars in the background are in the right spots. So I'm going to click and drag my globe around. And let's say I want to zoom in. If you have a mouse with a roller, you can roll it back and forth. If not, you will right-click and watch your cursor turn into the plus minus, and that will zoom in and out. And if you're connected to the internet, you should have Bing Maps, so sometimes you can get some cool resolution. Now, if you go around and you pan while you're zoomed in, you go far very quickly. So what I like to do, especially when I'm lost, I go over to my object browser and I right-click on what I want to zoom to. And you'll see right there, there's a zoom to button. If I click that, not only does it zoom to the object that I'm looking for, but it makes that the center of my focus. So if I zoom out of the White House and pan around, it still keeps the White House as my center point, so I can't lose it. So as a reminder, we roll out or in, or we right-click and drag out or in. If you want to break the view from zoom out, all you have to do is go back and click the home view. Now you can click and pan and move it around. You can see some of my stuff isn't loading as quickly. That's my Wi-Fi. Now, the White House is cool, but if you click on the spy set in the object browser and right-click and click Zoom to, you can actually zoom in and see the model that we use. Like I said, you can change this model. Some people, we did a Back to the Future where we put in the DeLorean and had all these great models, so it's really, really fun to be able to actually see what you're working with. So right-click on your spy set, click Zoom to, and check out your satellite. So I'm clicking and dragging, and I'm zooming in and out. And you'll see it stays on its pink orbit. And now, once you've zoomed into your satellite, hit play, and you can watch it animate. And you can zoom out and pan while it's animating, and it gets ready to go in its long orbit. Then I'm going to hit pause. Now everyone see if you can animate it so that your satellite is in the same frame as your city. I'm going to speed mine up. Alright, now that we have both of our objects in, and we've modeled everything, and we're looking around, I want you to take note down below, we have this timeline view. If you want to see a specific time on your window, all you have to do is drag it and check out when exactly you see that. Alright, so you can see I just dislodged my timeline window from the bottom. All I have to do is take it and drag it back down and it'll pop right back in. So now that we have our objects, we want to see when our SpySat can see DC. So we're going to reset the animation, and it's very important. We call this access. It's when one object has line of sight to another object. And we want to make sure that you have the correct to and from. So we want to go from our SpySat to the White House. So you're going to right click on it, and then there's this little, looks kind of like an arrow, and it has a small yellow box and a big green box. It says access. You're going to click on that. You will see at the top it says access for SpySat. If you'd selected the wrong one, you can change the object. And right now the only option is White House. So we're going to click on that, and right above that we're going to click compute. All of the calculations for 24 hours have been done in that instance. Once you click compute, you'll see that it's bold and it has a little asterisk. It means you're ready to go. If you come over here to the right hand side, you'll see that there's a report for access and there's a graph. So I'm going to click on the graph, and I can see that I have 2 periods of access when my SpySat can see the White House. There's a big gap. There's a long period when it can see it. And like I said before, you'll see down here on the tabs you can switch between these different windows. So what I'm going to do is get out of my graph, and I'm going to go back to my access report. And just so you all see that again, because I know I went kind of quickly, it's right here. Click the access reports. When you see the report, you're going to see the number of access, the start time, the stop time, and the duration. Now my duration is in minutes. If yours is not, if it's probably in seconds, you might have a bigger number. You right click on it, move over durations, and click units. You can see here that I have many to choose from, seconds, minutes, hours. Now, since it's got such a long time that it can see DC, I'm going to go and click hours. And if I click OK, you can see that I've changed the units. So I have one access period of 4 and almost a quarter hours, and then another with 11 and almost a third hours. So I would say that's pretty efficient. The total time, you'll see here below, we have global statistics. It gives you your min, your max, the mean, and the total duration. So we get 15 hours of uninterrupted view time. Now, before we close the report, let's go back to our 2 and 3D windows. If we click on the 3D window and zoom out so we can see everything, I'm going to slow mine down, and click play, you'll notice that something has changed. Hopefully. There it is. Once you click to compute access, it will automatically appear in your 3 and 2D windows. So as you can see, this line right here demonstrates when you have access. And when you do it on the 2D graph, you'll see that it leaves a line. This is the point in the orbit when you have access to the White House. And if we restart it and go through the animation, there you'll see it. Even from over here, well, that's a great pull. So here, this blue part we have access, and then way over here on the right, there's a little bit where we have access as well. So these are our 2 periods when the satellite can see DC. I'm going to go back to my 3D window and play it again. There we have access, and then again. So I'm going to leave this up. Now, what do we do with this information once we have it? I have my report here, and that's great, but if somebody doesn't have STK, then so far it's kind of stuck. Like every other window, you have options at the top. So we can save it as a text file, we can save it as a CSV file, print it, you can refresh it if you change your properties for anything. You can take measurements. You can save it as a quick report if you want to come back to this later. So we're going to click on that. All I had to do is click that button once. It's the lightning bolt with the folder. And if I go up here to the lightning bolt, there's my access report. So at any time, I don't have to go through all of this again for this satellite. I can just come up here and click that. But I'd like to export it to an Excel file. That way I can share it with my team. Now, if you click this up here, what will happen is you can export this information here. But I want to export all of it with the global statistics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the report itself. I'm going to highlight export and I'm going to highlight complete. Now when you highlight complete, it will send the entire report including the global statistics. So once again, that's a right click, go to export, complete, and now I'm just going to save it. You'll see right here, it's saving it in my SpySat folder. So it goes all the way down, STK, STK, SpySat folder. So this means that I'll save that. And now I'm going to navigate to it so you can see exactly where it went. So I have my SpySat folder right here, and you can see there's my report. Now what don't we see in this folder? We don't see the scenario. We haven't saved it yet. So you're going to go into STK. You're going to go up here and click Save. Once again, you'll see that it saves in the SpySat folder. And click Save. And now, if I go back to my folder where I checked out for my CSV report, you can see that not only did it save this scenario file, which is right here, but it also saved my satellite as a separate file. It saved my timeline preferences as a separate file, along with my White House place. So all of these different elements are saved within the folder, and you need all of them to be able to open it on another computer, let's say. So if I click on my report that I just created, you can see in Excel I have my access times, the durations, and I also have the global statistics. So it makes for a really nice, clean report. So I'm back at my report in STK. I've saved it. I've exported it so I can share it with my team. And there's one other thing I want to show you. So let's say I have this satellite, but I want to see if I can get a better time, if I can get better access. You have a couple options. You can insert a totally new satellite. And if you recall, we go up here. We click the Insert Object, which is the 4 little icons, and you can insert a new satellite, either the Orbit Wizard, define your properties, or you can right-click on your SpySat and hit Copy, and then up here, hit the clipboard and hit Paste. Now, I don't want them to be the same color because that's confusing, and I don't want it to be the same name, so I'm going to rename it as SpySat Try 2. And I'm going to double click on the color and change it to yellow. Once again, you can just double click on that and it brings up your color wheel. Now, it's kind of hard to see because they both have the same orbit right now. So what I'm going to do is right click in my object browser and go to Properties. And you'll see from my satellite, the very first set of properties is the orbit. Now you have the semi-major axis, the eccentricity, inclination, but you can also click this drop down and maybe you want to change the apogee radius or the altitude. Maybe you want to change the perigee instead. So here you have options depending on what orbital elements you're given, and you can change them and watch as your satellite changes. So I'm going to change this to 16,000 kilometers. Now I'm going to hit apply because I don't want to close this window just yet. And that's not going to work. So we have to go back and change it and hopefully not hit Earth. So we'll go through and change our inclination. I think that's safer. And as you can see on all the windows here, you can change the units as well. So if I hit apply and I go back to my window, you can see that my orbit has shifted. Same thing with my 2D window. Now what I'm going to do, if I hit restart and I hit play, you'll notice that the pink one has an access line, but the yellow does not. This is because we've only calculated access for one object relationship. So I'm going to go in and try this to practice. I'm just going to go in and right click on SpySat2, scroll down to access. I'm going to make sure that it says SpySat Try 2 at the top. I'm going to make sure White House is highlighted, and then I'm going to click compute. I now have access from my second satellite to the White House. I'm going to hit my report and take a look at what I've got. And once again, it's in minutes. That's too many for me to read. So I'm going to right click on the duration, highlight it, and go down to units. I'm going to change it to hours and click OK. Now I have 18 hours. So by changing my satellite's inclination, I gained 3 hours of time that I can see the White House. And if I go back to my 2 and 3D windows, I now see the axis. You can see here it's blue, and this is blue here. Now let's say you're here and you don't want to see both because maybe it's confusing, you have too much data on at once. If you go into the object browser and you uncheck, you can take objects out of your scenario without deleting them. So I'm going to turn off my second SpySat, turn off my first SpySat, and then I'll turn them all back on. I like to close out my tabs if they get to be too many at the bottom. Got my SpySat properties, I'll close those all out. So now I have a report for my second SpySat, and I'm going to open up from my quick reports the access report for my first SpySat. And now we can compare them side by side, 15 and 18. So this is my better satellite. And that, in short, is how you model a scenario in STK, you customize your scenario, and you export your data. How did everybody do? Were you able to analyze your satellites? Does anyone have any questions? All right, well, I will leave this up for another 10 minutes. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. You can also email me at education@agi.com. I'm going to put that in the chat for everyone. I've recorded this, so I'll make sure that the StellarXplorers team has this for distribution. We also have some great teaching tools and videos at start.agi.com. And I'm going to put that in the chat as well. And I'll bring it up for you so you can take a look at what we work with. So this is start.agi.com. You'll just come here, click on the STK training on the left-hand side. And for our purposes now, beginner is what we've started with. And you can click Get Started. And as you'll see on the left, if you need any help, they have different tasks. So from what we covered, creating a new scenario, inserting objects, modifying your objects in the object browser window with the properties. And it has all of these. It has some quizzes you can do, computing access. And remember, that's when a line of sight from one object to another. Finally, we have our reports and graphs. And then if you really want a challenge, which is kind of fun, you can make a movie. And I'm going to leave this up for you. And there's a recap challenge at the end. And once you've played around with this, you can get STK certified. We have 2 levels of certification. It's completely free. And you'll basically create a scenario and using what you've learned, and then you get a cool t-shirt with it as well. So like I said, if anyone has any questions, please feel free. I hope you all learned a lot. And if you think of anything in the future, please feel free to email me. And great job. Good luck on your competition. Thank you for coming.